Hey guys, I'm Francisco, and this is my YouTube channel, Before I Forget. And so we find ourselves the first week of April on the way to 420. And yeah, the last 2 weeks we were talking about more of the scientific aspects of it all, like the cannabinoids and the terpenes. And it's like, and I just thought to myself, and I was like, you know what, being the first week of the month, let's talk about more like the historical aspect of it all now. Like, where did cannabis come from? How did it end up in the States? And where does it find itself currently? But before we do that, it is that time of the day, y'all, or it's been that time of the day for me. What's in your bowl? I can tell you what's in mine. Some road dog. This is a pretty potent hybrid we got going on here. Yeah, this is very potent. This is like my third bowl, and I have no idea why I'm smoking this third one. I'm already in a good place, but you know what? I gotta smoke something, right? We gotta have our smoke sesh together. So this is here we go, you guys. So let's start off with this little smoke sesh. What's in my bowl with this road dog? Road dog, my friends. Everything I'm telling you guys, I'm getting from Leafly.com and WikiLeaf.com, by the way. Road Dog is an indica dominant strain. It's a cross of Star Dog and Biker Kush. It's known more for its like a gassy, pungent aroma with a mix of tropical fruit, mint, and diesel as a taste. What kind of feels does it offer? It's more of a focused, a euphoric, motivated kind of sensation. Good for like the social settings, for like vibing with people and your friends, and and folks. It's used to help with appetite, so we'll give some of us munchies and a little bit of that slumber to go with it, that post munchathon kind of itis. But outside of helping those who suffer from appetite issues, what else does it do medicinally? It helps with anxiety, depression, migraines, pain, and again, just one last time, lack of appetite. And not really, it's not, from what I've read, been the best one for more like newer smokers, because the high, as you can tell, is pretty intense. So, it's a pretty heavy kind of high. Couldn't necessarily find too many negatives about this strain, so that's a good thing, right? But let's move on to this parental units. The parental units now, Star Dog. Star Dog is more of a sativa dominant kind of strain. It is a mix of Chem Dog and Trey Dog. It's got it's known more for its musky and earthy aroma with a side of diesel. The taste, my friends, is a bit of a mystery. I was scouring, I couldn't find a place to sort of describe it in a way that I saw fit. But that could be a mystery for you guys to solve. If any of you stoner sleuths are out there, bam, there's a mission. What kind of high does this one tend to offer you? It gives you a more focused, creative, euphoric kind of sensation. So it's a good adulting, like getting your shit done, your errands done kind of strain. Medicinal benefits. It's good for helping against depression, anxiety, pain, nausea, and lack of appetite. Some of the negatives, of course, would be more the dry eyes, dry mouth, dizziness, and then, because it is a sativa dominant hybrid, possibly paranoia and anxiety. Just be mindful. For some folks, sativa strains can tend to cause people to get anxiety. So I want you guys to enjoy your highs with these strains, but be mindful of that aspect. So don't push it to that point where you got to deal with that. It's never a fun experience. So take it from me. But anywho, so now let's move on to Biker Kush, shall we? So Biker Kush is the cross of Lucifer OG and Hell's OG. It's known more for its lemony, earthy kind of aroma, and again, the taste itself is a mystery. It's more the high though is mostly more of like a relaxed, uplifting, happy, creative, chatty kind of high. So it's some folks tend to confuse it for sativa due to the first kind of sensation gives, which is more of a tingly, cerebral, euphoric kind of high. But then it follows it up with a good body high, along with a side of happiness. So I can definitely see how the indica side sort of kicks back in towards the end. That's why it makes for a very good kind of evening wind down kind of strain. But aside from that, medicinally, it's good for insomnia, lack of appetite, stress, anxiety, and depression. The negatives, of course, are going to be more the dry mouth, dry eyes, paranoia, dizziness, and headaches. But you guys, again, Biker Kush and Star Dog make this wonderful strain called Road Dog, which is hella potent. And I'm about to partake in this again one more time because, it is our smoke session. Also, it's only the right thing to do, right? So let's, prep your dabs, light your J's, pack your bowls. Let's get this show on the road. I really need to learn how to do like smoking tricks, but I can definitely taste that sort of like the diesely, it's a tropical taste to it. It's weird. It's a weird kind of combination to it. But yeah, guys. Let me know what you guys are smoking, by the way. I want to know. I want to know what strains you guys like to smoke. Do you guys have a favorite strain that you sort of like to partake during those smoke sessions? Hit me up in the comments below. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, Shaggy Adventure. Don't forget to subscribe. Yeah, I just want to hear from you guys. So yeah, bam, throw it on out there. Anywho, let's move on to the world history side of it all now, okay? A brief little history. So just so you guys know, I'm going to give you guys a good little summary, like a little like tip of the iceberg kind of situation. I'm going to flash once or twice where a full screen of where I got the sites from again, like I did last week. I just find that to be really useful and gives you guys the opportunity to sort of pause the video and just, to write things down so you can further check things out that interest you. All right, so onward, upward, and onward. Can we go? Can I get any higher? I'm about to find out. Actually, let's try. Let's pause for one more second. Yes. Okay. Now I'm in a good place. All right. So, a brief history of where cannabis came from. To figure this out, y'all, we got to rewind the clock about 12,000 years, all right? We have to rewind it 12,000 years to an area around Central Asia, which would be modern-day Mongolia and southern Siberia. This is where weed was sort of first cultivated, supposedly. Outside of that, as time went on, ancient China used it for a lot of different kind of things. For example, cloth, paper, rope, anesthetics, medicinal purposes. It was in 2000 BC to 1000 BC. There's even been there's data that shows that weed moved from Korea to India. So as time goes on, you're going to see cannabis slowly sort of just moving, spreading throughout the continents, right? It's really interesting. Yeah, like I said, 2000, 1000 BC, right? Along with that 2000 BC mark, a little trivia for you guys, a little stoner trivia. We're going to have to go a little further towards the Middle East into more Europe. In 2000 BC, there have been scrolls that have been discovered that show that within that era there was use of cannabis within Egyptian society. On top of that, Ramses II, when he was discovered, was covered in keef dust, weed pollen. I mean, damn. Damn, right? That's a wonderful place to be. So, shit, that's a wonderful place to be. So yeah, he was covered in weed pollen. A little trivia there for you. So, yeah, that's fun. But now we got to fast forward a couple more 100 years forward to the triple digit BC. So around 700 BC. 700 BC, again, with the Egypt, you also see more of the Middle East using cannabis. It was being used more in the Middle East for more medicinal purposes as well. There's an ancient Persian prophet by the name of Zoroaster. My apologies because I'm sure I butchered his name. He was an ancient Persian prophet that actually wrote about the medicinal uses of cannabis. By 200 BC, cannabis has gotten all the way to Greece. The Greeks adopted it to help treat certain conditions such as edema, earaches, and inflammation. By the 5th century, it had made it all the way to the UK. So by the 5th century, it made it all the way to the UK. Let's skip forward about a couple more centuries, and we got to make the mid 1500s. All right, so the mid 1500s, Spaniards brought it to the Latin American territories, and then what later became Mexico. By the mid 1600s, the British were in Jamestown, the colonies actually started to cultivate hemp because they started to realize that was making them money. By 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte brought cannabis and hashish back from Egypt to France to help to use it for its more pain relieving properties. It became a cash crop in French society. Supposedly, alcohol was there was no alcohol during that time, so people hella smoked. I'm not exactly sure how accurate that statement is, but that was an interesting little fact that I found, and yeah, just a random little piece of trivia I found along the way of this. By 1800, one of Napoleon Bonaparte's French generals uh, created what is one of the first questionable anti-cannabis laws ever made. Um, the reason why it's questionable because there's not enough certainty yet if it was the absolute first, but it's one of questionably the first anti-cannabis laws created in the world at that time, and it stated, and I quote. Article 1. The use of strong liquor made by certain Muslims with a certain grass, herb, called hashish, and smoking of the seed of cannabis are prohibited throughout Egypt. Those who are accustomed to drinking this liquor and smoking this seed lose reason and fall into violent delirium, which often leads them to commit excesses of all kinds, end quote. This law basically outlawed cannabis throughout the whole French Empire. It started in Egypt, as you can see. That whole era, I highly recommend you guys read about it. It's really interesting. There's so many different factors at play, politically and socially speaking, having to do with the whole cannabis debate as well. I really suggest you guys look into that. Like I said, this is all tip of the iceberg, but there's some fascinating information if you're into history. Now, even though even though by 1799 cannabis was criminalized in French society or French Empire, there was a group of stoners by the name of the Hashish Eaters Club that actually still reconvened, and they were sort of like down low stoners and stoner outlaws in French society. Two names that actually caught my attention as members of this group were one was Victor Hugo. If that name doesn't ring any bells for you, he was the writer of Les Miserables, Les Mis. I love that musical. So, but yeah, he was the writer of Les Mis. And then you had Alexandre Dumas, who was the writer of The Three Musketeers. So they were part of those underground stoners, man. So that's the more you know, right? So now, let's go forward another 50 years or so. 1850. By 1850, weed showed up in the United States. It was mentioned in the United States Pharmacopoeia, which at that time set standards for all prescriptions and over-the-counter medications. In 1850, it was stated that cannabis treated, among other things, neuralgia, tetanus, typhus, cholera, rabies, dysentery, alcoholism, opiate addiction, anthrax, leprosy, incontinence, gout, convulsive disorders, tonsillitis, insanity, excessive menstrual bleeding, and uterine bleeding. All of this was stated that cannabis could help treat in 1850. Keep that in mind. By 1910 is when things started taking a turn for cannabis and just for society, unfortunately. In 1910, many Mexicans trying to escape the Mexican Revolution fled to the U.S. and with them brought more cannabis. At that point, there was a big xenophobic push in the U.S. apparently, and that's when the term cannabis was turned into marijuana as a way to sort of disparage those of Latin American descent and also disparage the use of cannabis to associate with those who were being disparaged, and it was just xenophobic bullshit that sort of just started the conversion of cannabis to marijuana. On top of it all, the terminology, but on top of it all, you had extremely wealthy families such as the DuPont family and William Randolph Hearst, who did everything they could to sort of save themselves against the hemp industry so they could sort of promote their own push into the paper industry. Keep the DuPont family in mind for a second, because their name's going to come back up in a few more decades. By 1915, Utah was the first state to outlaw cannabis in the states. By 1931, 29 states had outlawed the cannabis. By 1930, Harry Assenger was the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. He worked on a federal level to criminalize marijuana. He was working on it, all right? So this is where, like, the push from the 1910 and onward, this is that push that went to criminalize it all, right? What happened then? I'm going to tell you in a second. One more smoke break, y'all. Ooh. Okay, so 1936, a movie comes out called Reefer Madness, which is basically a propaganda anti-weed movie. And yeah, it just basically was complete propaganda, sort of scare and push more towards towards the criminalization of marijuana. By 1937, a lot of those tactics worked, and the Marijuana Tax Act came into effect, which basically criminalized the use of cannabis throughout the states. The DuPont family, like I said, to keep their name in mind, was rumored to have had a push into getting this act and to getting this law enacted so they could save themselves from the hemp industry. Right? More little trivia there for you. Now, let's go forward to 1972. 1972 was a Schaefer Commission that was put together by President Nixon himself. This commission actually had discovered that they wanted to push for a decriminalization of cannabis when it came to personal use. Nixon himself went against the advice of his own commission and decided to keep marijuana criminalized and not decommissioned for personal use. So yeah, he's basically responsible in 1972 for keeping that going, that trend. 1973, the DEA was created, which was a combination of drug abuse law enforcement and the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. 1986, Reagan signed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act along with the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984, which basically made mandatory sentencing for weed-related crimes. Which that in itself was a whole nother social political discussion of sorts. Like all these, you can just like offshoot all these topics and deeper conversations, which is something I hope we all can do someday. This is what I hope they accomplish with all this. But going back to this, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act was enacted as well shortly after, sort of just like making it more of a 3 strikes you're out instead of a mandatory sentencing. By 1996, California was the first state to actually start pushing, and they had actually they legalized medicinal use of marijuana for patients suffering from certain painful conditions such as AIDS, cancer, and other painful diseases. They sort of started the ball rolling in the states, and 25 years later, we find ourselves now 15 states completely legalizing it for medicinal and recreational use. 33 other states have it for medicinal use. So the tide is turning, and every year it seems to be turning faster and faster. This topic itself, just the legalization of it all as well, is a whole nother discussion for debate too. And it's like, and I would love to talk to you guys about all of this. Like, like what I asked last week, it's, how do you view, cannabis in the sense of like, do you think it should be federally legal or not? Do you think it should stay a Schedule 1 narcotic in the views of like the DEA? Let's keep talking about this, you guys. It's But in the meantime, like I said, this was, I hope I was able to offer you guys a brief little tip of the iceberg kind of summary, global history lesson of cannabis, where it came from, how it came to the States, where sort of, how it sort of stemmed from there. And I hope you guys were able to learn something. I hope you guys maybe found some interest in something and maybe decide to pursue another, see where that sort of leads, that historical rabbit hole leads to. But aside from that, you guys, I hope that this finds you happy. I hope this finds you well. And most importantly, I hope this finds you blessed.